Okay. We will dive right in then. Thank you so much to everyone for coming. No? Still a bit of an echo? What do we reckon? Consensus? Good to start? Yeah? They might just keep adjusting it as we go. All right. So, yes, thank you so much to everyone for coming along. My apologies if I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time, as some of you will know.
Can't tell at all.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Our lovely Billy Jo is just a little bit unwell. She sounds a little bit croaky at the moment, so she's just resting at home, and she will be at our next one, which will be our last one for the year. And I'd just like to start by doing the acknowledgement of country. We are so privileged to be here on Menang Mudja. I really want to acknowledge the fact that we have that privilege to be here today and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to Joanna for being here, for travelling down onto our beautiful country.
I'm so honoured to have been invited, so thank you for having me.
How did you find the trip down?
I took the coach, so it was very pleasant, really relaxing. I read my book, and then I was here. So I thought about driving, but the coach seemed like the better option.
Well, that can lead me straight into my first question. What were you reading?
Oh, well, I was reading a book called Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I don't know who... Anyone read that? Piranesi. Can you still not hear properly? Oh. I'll try to speak a bit more clearly. Maybe that'll help. Is that better? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a slim novel called Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which...
I absolutely adore that novel. Yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's sublime, isn't it? It's just... I think... I just wanted to be there in that world. Yes, it was beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent choice. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
About time I read it. It's quite echoey for me up
it
here.
Is
Is it okay for you? Yeah.
It is a bit for me as well.
We'll just press on.
All right. So one way that we really like to start is to ask a little bit about young Joanna. What were you like as a child? What was your relationship to reading?
I think I always had a good relationship with books and stories. My mum has always encouraged storytelling. So, if I would tell her something and she'd say, tell a story about that, write a story about that. So that was always like that for me. Just storytelling was just in the order. And books, my first book that I really fell in love with was the Anne of Green Gables series, which I just tore through, and I felt really seen by the librarian who would have the next one waiting for me, and that was just, my first sort of sense of community and real book loving.
And what a great protagonist for book lovers as well.
Oh, yeah, Anne. And Pollyanna was another one, yes. Mm.
Yeah. Mm. And did you have any other favourite authors growing up, or did it tend to be specific books?
I think I just picked up whatever caught my attention. We didn't obviously have social media or much TV or whatever, so I picked up Maeve Binchy at one point, Stephen King. I landed on Pet Sematary, which was interesting.
I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was an eye-opener for me as a kid. I think I'm okay.
Nightmares are finally stopped.
Yes, that's right. I'm recovering. And then I found Margaret Atwood at a certain point, and loved her. And yeah.
And with that background at home, that love of storytelling, did you always know that you were going to be a writer of some kind, or did you dream of being something else growing up?
I think it was always writing for me. I was the sort of child who would staple bits of paper together and, start a book with a cover, and it would usually peter out after a few pages, but the intention was always there. And I remember I went to stay with my uncle and aunt at their dairy farm, and they taught me a few of the, behind-the-scenes things that go on at dairy farms, and I ended up writing a book about artificial insemination with illustrations. So, that's just always been my way of processing the world, I guess, yeah.
Educational text, very good.
I know.
And with a little bit of your background, we were speaking earlier about your visits to Albany and that this was your third. You said that you visited for the first time backpacking. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, well, I was about 21 and I actually grew up in South Africa. So I came to Australia knowing that my parents were immigrating and we were all kind of moving here. But I came first because I'd finished my degree and I was at a loose end. So I came to Australia. I started off in Melbourne and I met some travellers and we ended up buying a car. We drove from Melbourne across up to Uluru, across the Nullarbor, and we landed in Albany and we had no money. And so we became fruit pickers for a fortnight, picking strawberries and wearing bin liners because it was rainy. So very much just backpackers, living on the, on nothing. Yes.
That's some high-tech gear that you had.
I know. Yes, I remember it was cold. That's about all I recall. Yeah.
So when did you settle in Perth? From the novel, it felt that you had a lot of familiarity with it. I was speaking to some of our readers earlier and they were saying that they were just immediately transported to their roots and their youth.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough, once my parents were in Perth and we kind of settled to go to UWA and do a dip ed. And while I was there, I did have that experience with, the toga parties and the UWA lifestyle. I wasn't an undergraduate, but I was able to kind of experience that. So that's probably where that comes from. And then subsequently, I was in a band, and so with my brother, and, I got to know that scene, I suppose, which comes through in the book.
Excellent. Okay. What did you prefer? The uni culture, band culture, journalism?
Oh, the band culture was a bit of a highlight. I did love the journalism as well for a while, but the pay was abysmal and the expectations were a little bit intense. So I walked away from journalism partly because of the pay and the prospects, but mostly because I discovered that what I was loving was working with the language and shaping the stories. And my editor was telling me to just get it down on the page and then leave it for the sub-editors to kind of polish and perfect. And I didn't want that. I was enjoying that part of the job. So that's when I moved into creative writing as a discipline, yeah.
So one of the questions we also ask often is, are you a plotter or a pantser? Do you plot everything out or kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
Kind of dries up. I feel like I need the mystery of the story to pull me along. A scene, a place, or a feeling. So I'm trying to do that with my current work in progress, but we'll see how that goes.
Excellent. That's a little bit tantalising, isn't it, everyone? And when you are in the throes of writing, in the midst of it, how do you find your rituals? Is there a ritual that you have to stick to? One of my all-time favourite Billy questions is in reference. It is, isn't it? There is an article. 13 Australian authors share their creative rituals, and some of them, had to do Scrabble online compulsively, or had to have a peppermint cup of tea and a banana before they could get started. Do you have anything like that?
Oh, I don't have anything that interesting, I don't think. I do tend to put music on, some kind of, something on YouTube usually, like a Zen-like music, just to get into the flow, because your inner critic, or your mind, can tend to just be really chatty, and it can be difficult to immerse yourself in a scene or a story. So probably just putting on some music. I have 2 kids, so I don't feel like I have the luxury of a get up in the morning, get straight down to it ritual. I just take what time I can get.
Whenever you can.
Yeah, I have more time nowadays. They're a bit older. But while I was doing my PhD, they were very little, and I had to just work while they napped, or in whatever moments I could find. So I guess I had to learn to make the most of every minute. Whether I had a ritual or not, I just had to
get some
down.
words on the page.
That's it, yes.
And also, so this novel was a part of your submission to the Hungerfoot Award. How was that process for you? It's a little bit of a mystery to me, and I know that we have a few writers in the audience as well, and I think we'd love to hear about that.
Okay, so it's an online submission process, and once you've submitted, you just have to wait, and that's the painful thing. I did submit a manuscript to an earlier Hungerfoot competition, and at that stage we still had to mail in a hard copy, but nowadays, and in the case of this one, it was on email, through Submittable. And then you just wait and hope and question your life choices. And I did start a new manuscript as well, because I thought, this one probably isn't going anywhere. I just need to work on the one that will. So I tried not to think about it. And I kind of thought, because I'd tried before and got nowhere, I thought, if this one doesn't get shortlisted, I have to rethink my whole approach. Maybe I'll go really commercial, or maybe I'll just do something else altogether. So when I got a phone call from Fremantle Press, it was a massive relief, almost more than anything else, because it meant that I had permission to carry on, and maybe I was going to be able to have a career writing books.
Beautiful. And it would have connected you to other authors that were going through the same thing as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. I met the other 2 shortlisted authors, Sharon Booth and Maria Pappas, and I'm now in a writing group with Sharon and Maria, and it's connected me to a whole community of writers, not only with Fremantle Press but also across Australia. So it's been amazing, yeah.
Was that a part of a community that you were already connected to with your background in journalism, or did you find them very separate spheres?
I walked away from journalism in 2005. Yeah, so I didn't really, and I'd only been there for a year or 2, so I didn't really have a strong community in journalism. And then I was in academia studying creative writing, and I made quite a few friends there, and I'm still friends with some of those people. So it was very different, I suppose, to either of those experiences, though, because I've met a whole lot of Fremantle Press authors, and I guess it's very different to the journalism days. And a lot of that community is online as well, through social media and things like that, yeah.
Is that an element that you enjoy, or do you prefer the face-to-face, if you can?
I have a love-hate relationship with social media, because the way I looked at it in the beginning was, I have to do this, so I may as well enjoy it. And I used to be a student of filmmaking, so I decided going in, I'll just try and make little videos that tell the story of whatever it is I'm trying to do, like book signings or packing a bag to go over east to sign books. And so I enjoy that aspect of it, but it's very time consuming. And there's also a kind of vulnerability that kicks in afterwards. Like you are putting yourself out there, and it can be challenging. So my feelings towards it, they come and go, but I have to do it in some way, shape or form these days. You just have to put it out there and move on. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Is that something that you expected to be part of the journey as you were starting out?
I did have an inkling. I was on Twitter and I saw a lot of activity, authors sharing bits and pieces from their journey and pictures of the books. So I knew, but I didn't really know how to start. It was a bit daunting, but I just decided to dive in and copy what other people were doing to some extent, see what I liked, what other people did, and just try to make it my own.
And what led you to this story, the one that we've just read, The Beautiful Ghost of Gracie Flynn? Where was the starting point for you? Was there a character or a sequence of events?
I think it would have to be... So he wasn't Sam at that point. I was working on a novel set on Rottnest Island. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Set on Rottnest Island. That novel, a man washed up on the beach in a boat, and that novel kind of stalled, and I had to shelve it. I had to put it away because it wasn't working. But the idea of a man's body in a boat and the mystery that would kind of grow around such a discovery stayed with me, and it kept kind of gnawing at me that I could turn that into something. So I'd like to say it was like a meaningful theme or something like that, but it really was just that mystery, and the place as well, the river, the atmosphere of the river at night. That's kind of where it came from. So I moved him from the beach to the river, and we went from there. Yeah.
I always love it when a book starts out with this event has happened and then how did we get there? Is that a device that you particularly enjoy?
I do love that kind of device because you're immediately hooked and you immediately have questions, and those questions are the things that pull you along. So I do enjoy a story that gives me a teaser and then jumps back to explain how we got there.
Excellent. What about the room? Does anyone else love it when a book has that? Yeah.
Well,
you had a couple of psychotic characters there.
Which ones?
Those two men.
Oh, Jethro or Sam and Cohen. Oh, yes. Yeah. A little unhinged.
Just displaying a lack of empathy to fellow humans, I think.
Yeah.
Which I wondered if you were exploring how people treat other people.
Yes, definitely there's the element of that. In particular, Sam's callous approach to other people. Cohen, I think I more wanted him to have lost a lot of empathy, a lot of the ability to care about others because he was so bereft and he just couldn't get over it.
And do you think that justified how his business, his appalling business?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, that was appalling. But I love characters. I love watching characters make bad decisions as well. Maybe I'm the psychotic one, but there's just something very engaging about watching a character make one wrong move after another. And that's what I was doing with Sam and Cohen, yeah.
Were there any characters that surprised you as you wrote them? You sort of thought, they're going in this direction, and then you were pulled in another?
That's a good question. I have to think about which draft we're talking about because there were so many. So in early versions, Sam and Cohen had quite a different dynamic. And I don't know if you want to hear about early versions that might ruin.
We do.
Yeah. So originally, Cohen was a cold, cynical character, and Sam had something over him, and that was Cohen's motive. And what he had over him was a hit and run. So, completely different story. So that surprised me, I guess, how that changed along the way.
But you still had that sort of power imbalance in their relationship.
Yes, I did want to tease that out and play with the power dynamic. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but one of the characters that really intrigued me was Robin. I felt a really strong connection to her, and I did wonder, journalism, Perth, was there a bit of yourself in Robin?
I do love Robin, and I think there'd have to be. My journalism career was a much smaller career than hers. I wasn't a foreign correspondent. I didn't see the kind of atrocities that she comes across. But I think what does come through in her from my experience is intruding on other people's pain constantly. And, you often are approaching people at one of the darkest moments in their lives, and you're asking them questions, and you're asking them, have I spelt your name right? And, it can be quite a chilling dynamic, and I was happy to walk away from that. So that feeds into her burnout, I think, and her disillusionment, yeah.
That's such a good point. I don't think I picked up on it at the time with the spelling of the names.
Oh,
yeah.
No, that's just something that, journalism 101, you can't spell a name wrong in the article. So verifying little facts can be a little bit cold when people are dealing with massive trauma or grief. Yeah.
So speaking of your previous versions, we do love the concept of killing your darlings. Was there any characters or a specific plot that you were really, really attached to that you had to let go of that was hard?
That is a good question too. I did have to kill lots of darlings, but they were mostly, paragraphs, plot elements. My second draft was a cold case podcast version. So I sort of shot the story 20 years into the future, and I had Isla, a grown-up, looking back and exploring things, and so it was completely different. And that was hard to let go of in a way, because I was quite fond of the idea of a cold case podcast structure to a novel. But unfortunately, I had tried to shoehorn things into a structure and it wasn't working. So I did have to kill that darling in a big way.
Oh, how fascinating.
Sorry, just wanted to say something there about Isla. I think that was lovely. When I originally got the book, I didn't think I wanted to read it because I thought, I don't want to hear a ghost telling me the story. But I loved her speaking directly to Isla.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. That's lovely. I did, it was kind of an intuitive decision, I guess, but I did want to see that side of Gracie that she never got to live. She never got to have children. She never got to have a life beyond 19. So I hoped that was a poignant kind of angle.
I think some of my favourite passages were actually when she was speaking directly to Isla.
Oh, that's so lovely. I know it didn't work for everybody. I have, heard comments about why would you do that? That's implausible. So it's nice to hear that it worked for you.
And how did you land on having it from Gracie's perspective? Switching from Isla to Gracie.
So Gracie's narration was actually something that came into play in quite a late draft. Originally, the story was told. Basically, it focused on the different characters, but there was no unifying voice. So each chapter, say a Sam chapter, was told in the third person, but with a bit of Sam's voice, is what I was trying to do. And then a Cohen chapter would have Cohen's voice infused into the third person narration. But after a few drafts, I had a look at it, and it just felt flat, and I was just on the brink of giving up on it, I think. And then I just thought, I read a book which had this wonderful voice to it. It was actually, is it Taffy Boudica? Fleischman is in Trouble. I'm sure you know the book. Anyway, she has this very strong voice, and it's somebody telling the story, and I just thought that's what's missing. And then it just went from there. Gracie kind of stepped in as a good choice because she was omniscient. She would have insight into all the different characters, and she could pull the story together. And so I hope that's what happened.
Yeah. I found her perspective so compelling because it was a character who has just been there observing it all. As you said, she sort of was almost a reader with us, where she's observed them make one bad decision after another, people that she cares about, and would absolutely be jumping up and down going, no, don't do that.
That's right. Yeah, oh, thank you. I'm so glad.
All right. So, another question that we quite enjoy, so I wanted to make sure I brought it up, was in Murakami's Novelist as Vocation memoir. He references, and I'm going to read it from the page so I don't mess up the quote, that when finding ideas of what to write about, an author's greatest asset is their mental chest of drawers, stocked with unrelated observations and details about the world around them. He refers to this as a form of renewable energy. How do you feel about that?
Wow, I haven't read that before. That's cool. I think that's true. There is a chest somewhere that's full of all sorts of random details and bits of information and thoughts and ideas. And I think increasingly I've come to have faith in that chest to retain things. For example, we were recently on holiday, and I did think maybe I should be keeping a journal of observations, which I do think is important because you do forget some things. But I also know that when I want to go there in my mind and tell stories about those places, there will be, what's important will still be there. So that's I like that. I think I need to find that and read it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I absolutely am a journaler as well. I love, especially when on holiday, grabbing little bits of pieces, the receipt from the restaurant, sticking it down and writing out, what did the restaurant smell like and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Is that something that you feel like you draw from when you were saying you always keep a little bit of something there?
Yes, the small details. And I think when you start writing, there are writers here, aren't there? Yes, I recognise. It's a lot to do with... Yes.
Excellent.
The late arrival. Scents, smells, tastes, sounds, facial expressions, all those things that you accumulate are what you need to bring your story to life. So, yes, journaling. But absolutely, I think it is the little things, and the more you can jot down, the better. And phrases, little poetic phrases that you catch yourself or other people uttering, it always pays to jot them down.
Does anyone keep one of those? Yeah? Yeah? Excellent. Paper blanks journals, they're beautiful at that, aren't they? So, what's next for you? You kind of mentioned earlier that you're still working on a new novel. Is that something that you can tell us about a little bit, even if it's not specifics?
I can. The one I'm trying to work on now is my third book, because my second one recently I managed to pick up an agent for. So it's done for now. I'm sure that if I do get a publisher, there will be editing rounds to come. But for now, I've put that one to bed, and I'm on the cusp now of a new project. So I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's going. But book 2 is another mystery novel, I would say. It's a novel within a novel. So it's about a woman whose mother left her to pursue her own creative ambitions, intending to come back, but unfortunately dying soon after coming home and leaving a lot of questions for her daughter. Her daughter finds out that she was in Fremantle, so she goes there from London and finds her old journal in the library and discovers that there was a novel that her mother wrote while she was there, and so she begins looking for that. And I won't say whether she finds it or not, but the reader is privy to that novel. So it sort of alternates between the daughter looking for the truth about her mother and the novel that her mother wrote, which reveals a mystery that the people that the daughter's now staying with would rather nobody ever found out about. So that's what's coming, hopefully.
How intriguing.
Hopefully.
Can't wait to get our hands on that one.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So you are very good at juggling multiple timelines and character perspectives. How do you keep them all straight in your head?
Well, thank you for saying that. I sometimes think I'm a little too ambitious rather than good at it, but it's a very visual thing for me. I have to mind map. I have to draw sort of snake-like maps of the timelines, highlighters, coloured pens, all of those things, tables on Word. I use it all just to try to keep track.
I love hearing about everyone's methods. Thank you for painting us that picture. Ooh,
No
okay.
worries. The latest one really has broken my brain, and Katie at the back has helped me. She's read a few drafts and given me good feedback. Oh, thanks, Katie. But I have kind of promised myself that the next one will be a linear novel because I'm just fatigued with all the juggling of dates and timelines. But I don't know if I'll be able to help myself. It's just the kind of novel I like to read, and I think it's what keeps me interested as a writer as well. So we'll see.
Any other favourites as an adult then, with you saying that that's the type of novels that you like to read? What can you recommend to us?
Well, Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood is a great example of a novel within a novel. Haruki Murakami's Q-teen84, I don't know if that's how you say it, is another example of that. I've stalled on that one, so that's probably not a good answer.
I did love Kafka though. I loved Kafka on the Shore by Murakami. That's probably my favourite so far.
Yes.
But it does have cats, so...
I'm trying to think. I'm losing my voice. I don't know if anyone's read The Hummingbird Effect by Kate Mildenhall, her latest book. She jumps around in time quite drastically from the 1930s to 2020, right up to 2181, looking at the collapse of human civilization, essentially. And, yeah, she does that very cleverly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, how interesting. This is the danger, isn't it? We hear about all these amazing books and then we just add more onto our list.
I know, it's exhausting.
How are we going to keep up? Well, if we can all stay alive a little bit like Gracie, maybe we can read over people's shoulders.
Katie's novel that's coming out next year, that's also plays with structure and time, so look out for that one. Sorry,
We
Katie,
will.
I'm putting the spotlight on you.
We will absolutely check that one out. And then Speaking of Katie and beta readers, I did read that in your acknowledgements. Can you talk us through that beta reader progress as well? Where does that sit?
I think it's a crucial step. I call on my long-suffering husband and parents and sister and friends to read early drafts for me, and their feedback is invaluable. And I think it's something that I learnt doing postgraduate creative writing. At first, the feedback is kind of terrifying and really exposing, I suppose, to learn how other people see your work is quite frightening, but it's so important, and it's important, I think, to be hungry for feedback and guidance, because quite often we may not be aware of the themes that are emerging, or stereotypes, plot faults. There are lots of things that when you're writing something yourself, you miss, and you're not aware of some gaps and things.
So immersed in it.
Yeah, and because it's all real in your own head, you can forget that there are things you need to do to bring the reader along, scenes that you need to set, character development that you need to put on the page. It's not enough to just have it in your own head. So beta readers are vital.
We love you, beta readers. I would love to find out if there's anyone from the audience that have any more questions. Anyone have anything they want to ask? Or have we covered it all? Oh, yes.
I was wondering about how you decided to put the concept of that Ponzi scheme.
Oh, yes.
And there has been something in the media related to that happening in Perth in recent years, and I wondered where that came from.
So, as I mentioned, I think initially the crime was a hit and run, and I began to feel that was a cliche. It was a hit and run, yeah. But I felt that a car knocking someone down had been done a lot. So I don't really know how I landed on the Ponzi scheme. I think there was probably something in the news at the time about Bitcoin and, you know, people leading innocent investors up the garden path, stealing from them. So I'd say that's where that came from, yeah. I was looking for something kind of despicable, criminal, and unfolding. Also something that he could keep secret for a time before it all started to catch up with him. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I really like the visual image as well. So I thought, oh God, this awful stuff that goes on online where people are not accountable for their actions. When he was smashing the phone, it's like as if you could destroy it.
Yeah,
As if you could erase what you had done just by smashing the phone.
that's right.
Stopping the texts and the
Yeah.
coming in. That was very powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Especially in the way the world works.
Yeah.
Showed us how to talk that world.
No. A bit desperate and delusional, essentially. Yeah. Yes.
You know, I interpreted that Ponzi scheme because Cohen to me was a very simple guy. I mean, I've obviously come in late, sorry, but because I interpreted like that him and Sam grew up somewhere down south, somewhere in the bush, maybe on the coast, and he was a simple guy. Him and Gracie hit it off because they were just the same kind of soulmates. And when Gracie died, and he had to change to survive, when he met his wife, I can't remember her name.
Jewel.
Julie, she was very much, I'm making money, this is how I make money, 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 money. And Cohen's gone, I don't know how to do it, I've got to make money, I've got to change myself to survive. So he's done that, even though it goes against everything that, and he's not happy doing it, but somehow he's got to cover his tracks and make money so it keeps her from finding out. But in the end, I think once he's found out that it was Sam, you know, and he's So you kind of wistfully, I was going, well, I hope they didn't. But that's how I interpreted that Fonzie thing, was he had to change to fit in with this new life, even though it went against everything he read.
Yeah, I think that's right. He was completely unprepared for a life in finance and business. We wasn't even interested in it. Yeah, he was kind of a passenger in his own life at that point, I think. Yeah.
Thought I saw another arm. Yeah, Anne-Marie?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Anna Maria. I'm interested in that when I read this book, I grew up in that area, and as a young person, I lived on those streets, and I found it such an easy book to read because instead of having to create a picture of somewhere where you were taking me, I'd been there. And what I find extraordinary is that you said that you came to Australia, and that what I get is this really beautiful sense of ownership of what it would have been like to be a young person growing up, and that's quite an elite area to grow up in. So, and students get to be there, and I found your interpretation of that really lovely because it threw me back.
Oh,
to
thank
like,
you.
Oh, that's right. I used to live there, and oh, that's right. I went there.
Yeah.
So
Except
do
it
you
was a
find?
stone throw.
Sorry.
Except it was a
I
stone
know, I
throw,
got thrown out of
not
the stone throw by Nick Cave because I was talking. So no talking. So I find it interesting that so when I heard you talk initially, I thought, she's not from here. So is there an attachment that you're finding in WA and that where you're living that is drawing you to write about us rather than where you grew up?
Wow, that's an amazing question, full of lovely observations.
I thought, oh my God, she must be my age. She must be me.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled that you've said that. That it comes to life with authenticity for you. That's really good, and I think because I was a student when I lived in that area, that is my experience of it, and. But why I've chosen to write about that and not where I come from is a very interesting question too, I think, because I would love to write about South Africa, but it's huge. It's I don't even know how to begin telling a story there. And really, this one is set in such a small part of Perth, isn't it? So, yeah, I don't really know how to answer that, except that I've tried to put the atmospheric stuff that I love about Perth in there.
You pick that area and then throw us down south to where surfers go. So it's almost like the culture that lived in that area also is the culture that threw itself to the southwest,
Yeah.
to the Great Southern. So we have a different surf scene. But I found the link so real.
Thank
That's
you.
what we all did.
Yeah.
And so I was interested to meet you because I was saying to the ladies earlier on, I wonder how old she is because I reckon she's probably my age.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm just glad that it worked for you in that way. Yeah.
We had another question that was sort of hidden behind the pillar. I think you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, well, my question before was about the Ponzi Street scheme, and this lady kind of put a different interpretation in. I was kind of wondering, did he have a Ponzi scheme because he got lost, or because you needed him, or you wanted him to have a criminal character to show that he deteriorated so much after Gracie, and then it was also kind of it's a means to an end because he'd done that, he was considering an escape route for himself, and that's what he used to knock off my family.
Yes.
So like it kind of tied together in that end, and I just wondered if that was the end in sight, or if it was more of a you use that as the reason for his character development.
So, the truth of it is that it evolved, and it's probably a combination of those things. So, initially, as I say, in that early draft, I needed Sam to have something over Cohen as a motive for Cohen to do him in, and I landed on the hit and run. And that developed then into the Ponzi scheme. But also, yes, he needed to be a man on the brink, basically, with nothing left to lose. And then, of course, the device of having the poison on him also fed into him having a weapon, a murder weapon, essentially. But incidentally, do you know what I mean? He had that on him for his own purposes, and the circumstances just led him to using it in that moment. I don't know if that answers your question. Yes.
I never actually thought of Cohen as wanting to get rid of Sam because he had something over him, and it
No.
was like text about
Yes.
death from Robin at the end.
Yes.
Do it, whereas I never thought that that was actually, like, I think he was always worried about it, but not to that extent.
No. And that's a legacy of the early draft. Yeah. So.
I just wonder also about this whole concept that a guy took a girl home, drugs in her drink, and subsequently, because all the way through, I started the book, I had to reread it because I wasn't sure who was talking to me. And I realised, oh my God, it's the ghost, she's talking to me. So it took me a while to realise, okay, she's dead. So we're kind of unravelling in some way. Why is she talking to us in this way? So I know we're talking about the Ponzi scheme, but the area that really concerns me is this happening? You know, you're going out socially and someone just pours something in my drink and then I die.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that also came to me very strong in the book, that she died accidentally. And his intentions perhaps were very different to that.
Yes.
And he thought, oh, okay, see ya. And was quite flippant about what he did. And there was no evidence of accountability because, sadly, he died. But he died because of something else, which I think is the lovely thing about the book. It was like all these tentacles were going on, and then they all came together at the end. But yeah, I mean, I know he's in a Ponzi scheme, but I was just more concerned with the fact that people are out there, you know, with these drugs.
Yeah. Spiking drinks.
If I can, you know, get a girl and I can just stick a drink, you know, put a thing in her drink.
Yes. Terrifying.
Who's the other character? The not so the character who knew everything about drugs.
Oh, Maddie.
His flatmate, and he knew, do not mix.
Don't trust. You can
Drink.
trust him because he knew everything
But
about
he
drugs.
didn't tell him, you don't actually mix alcohol in that.
Mm.
And it was like there was this, oh, that's interesting, but I'm happy that it ended and that for whatever reason, you know, then, you know, he died and okay. But that was really interesting. That it was funny how the book starts and he meets a woman. He goes, oh my God, I can't believe it. I've met this amazing woman. I want to be with her. I want to have a child with her. And as you explore his personality, you realise,
No.
you're awful. I can't believe you're doing that. So I thought that was great. And so then, not knowing the ghost was talking to us, I realised, oh, hang on. Oh, okay, this is getting a lot more complicated than I thought. So I think what started off, and often miniseries do this, they give you a character, he's gorgeous looking, he's wonderful, and then he just gets darker.
The cracks start to show, don't they?
And I found that really good. And at the end, I thought, yeah, you're all gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did think it was poetic justice almost, but and you know the other guy Sam got to be with his girlfriend, and I thought yay, and you know it was all very sweet, but I thought of the journalist living with that story alive in her very investigative self. I thought, ooh, you'll be taking sleeping tablets.
Yeah, just when she thought she'd be recovering from the burnout. I know. It's true.
Yeah, and then that thing, how she was able to take photographs of Sam and the girl.
Mm.
It was almost like that journalist, her inner journalist couldn't let go, even though she's supposed to be not doing
You know, let's retire, let's be calm.
Yes.
But no, hang on, let's do this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, you know, it was interesting.
Thank you, and I'm glad you.
Very quickly.
I'm glad that you saw a poetic justice in the, Sam dying by having his drink spiked. But it is terrifying, isn't it, to think that your life can be snuffed out by mistake so easily, by a friend. Yeah.
You were killed by someone who generally knows you. So
Mm.
that's why I was wondering when they talked about her death, I was like, didn't all of you get investigated? Because that's what cops do. They investigate all the people closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the story evolved, you think, oh yeah. And then there was that glitch at the end about his alibi wasn't his alibi.
That's right. Yeah.
that was clever. Nice twist.
Thank you.
I've seen the same movies I've seen.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't know if this is... Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Sorry, did we have one more? We'll have to make this one the last one, guys.
The other thing that I really enjoyed was the unfolding. So you told the story of Sam's death like two or three times, I think. So like initially right at the beginning, and you had the date and it was going to happen and everything like that. I have the countdown in dates.
Yeah.
How close are we? Where are we going? And that seemed like, oh, Jules, definitely. Jules. And then later on, there was just, later on, and she woke up with a head bump, or somebody's got, and it was never, you told it in such a way that it kept you guessing, and I liked the way that you told it a few different times. And it was only the truth revealed itself at the end.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. I've not really seen that where you get that, the retelling a little bit more detail each time.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that worked for you. I think I just love stories that come together in a really fragmented way. So that's really where that came from. So I'm glad it worked for you. Yeah. I'm glad it wasn't repetitive, that it was...
That's okay. All right, we have had some amazing questions tonight. Thank you, everyone. We are getting close to time, so what I would love to do is ask if you'd be happy to read a passage from your book.
So this is a difficult choice, actually, working out which bit to read. But I think that I will go with the bit in Yelling Up. One of the bits in Yelling Up. Partly because I can't surf, but I feel like this makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. So they're down and Yelling Up for SWAT-vac, and Gracie has admitted that she's kind of drawn to Sam. His allure kind of works on her, even though she doesn't like that about herself. So here we go. The next morning, before the sun's properly up, there's a tap on our door. So gentle, I wonder if I dreamed it. I look at Cohen, but he's asleep, one arm across his eyes. Gracie. It's Sam in a loud whisper. I carefully pull back the covers and head to the door. Then I open it and slip through the gap. Hey, I whisper, what's up? I'm going for a surf. Thought you might like to join me. I already chose you aboard. Beyond the windows, the sky is growing lighter. You can hear waves pounding on the shore and birds beginning to warble. Sounds big, I say. Sounds perfect, but we'll go somewhere smaller if you prefer. It's been too long since I paddled out in the early morning, felt the push of water beneath my feet through a board. So I nod through a yawn and grab my bikini and towel off the line while Sam finds me a wetsuit. Shall we leave a note? Why? Sam says. I don't need permission, do you? Smith's Beach is one bay to the south, a short drive through the national park, then west again at the Canal Rocks turn-off. We don't speak in the car, allowing space for the sacred hush of early morning. The view of Smith's from the rise is spectacular, a wide blue bay with shadowy reefs beneath the surface. We pull off into the car park at the bottom of the hill, then take the stairs, carrying our boards up over the dune and down to the water's edge. 6 or 7 surfers are out there already, black wetsuits rising and falling with the waves, waiting for a good set. "Let's go," Sam says. Then he gives a whoop and runs out, diving onto his board and paddling fast. I do the same, though my whoop is more of a gasp in the bracing chill of the water. Paddling hard, duck diving as needed, I finally reach him out back. I'm unsure on the board. Last time I tried this, I was small and light, a whole lot nimbler. I wait out the whole of the next set, watching the others. He's good, Sam, strong and confident, rides those waves as far as they'll take him. They're not big, only a couple of feet, and I'm feeling guilty that he's missing out on something bigger around the reach of rocks to the north, but he makes them count anyway. After a good wave, he gets back out to where I'm waiting, not for him, but for my courage to kick in, and pushes his hair back off his face. "Sensational," he says. Then he glances at the swell behind me. "This one has your name on it. Come on, Gracie, gun it." So I do, and he's right. I'm in the sweet spot. I paddle hard. Muscle memory kicks in, and somehow I'm on my feet, knees bent, gliding along in the pocket while the water churns behind me. My rusty technique is still sharp enough that I can stay ahead of the lip, even pull a cut back before I lose momentum and drop back into the water. My heart's pounding when I come up for air, sending that same elation I saw on Sam's face pulsing through my veins, out to every cell in my zinging body. He gives me a thumbs up from the back. After an hour or so of being tumbled by the waves, with the occasional good ride thrown in, plus a nasty reefscape to the shin, and a gallon of salt water up my nose, I find I'm spent and hungry. Must be time to head back, I say, picturing Robin and Cohen back at the house, wondering where we've got to. "For sure," Sam says, "one more set and we'll head in." Back on the sand, shot through with adrenaline, we peel off our wetsuits to the waist. The breeze is a caress. Water glistens on Sam's skin, runs off the curves and dips of his shoulders as he bends for his board. I look away, head back first up the stairs. Maybe I'll leave it there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty, so that brings us to the end of another book club. Would you be willing to sign some books for our members?
Of course, of course.
Excellent. Brilliant. I've prepped a pen. Alrighty, so we will set you up so that you can sign some books. And just a reminder that we do have next month's here, which will be Paul Kelly's Minds Went Walking. So if you don't have a copy already, you're more than welcome to come up and have a chat with me and we can sort that out for you.
Good choice.
Yeah, very exciting. We're going to have some authors here in person again. Yeah, and that'll be our last one for the year.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Actually, if nobody objects, I'd love to take a photograph of you all. We spoke earlier about social media and the...
Would you like me to take one and we can have you in the foreground?
Sure. All right. I'll just get this lovely crowd first. Everyone say Paperbarks. And you need to